Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty.
One day I suddenly found myself writing down the following words, with no understanding of where they were coming from. Between us, a sheet-thin gauze of fire that a sudden gust might extinguish. But there is no wind.
One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dog strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder.
When you're trying to change the world, the thing you need to do is get close enough to people who are falling down, get close enough to people who are suffering, close enough to people who are in pain, who've been discarded and disfavored, to get close enough to wrap your arms around them and affirm their humanity and their dignity.
The opposite of racist isn't not racist. It is anti-racist. What's the difference? One endorses either the idea of a racial hierarchy as a racist or racial equality as an anti-racist. One either believes problems are rooted in groups of people as a racist or locates the roots of problems in power and policies as an anti-racist.
The greatest threats to our freedom are hopelessness, helplessness, and the criminalization of rebellion. Dreaming and joining others fight hopelessness because they remind us that we developed the world that we want.
When Black people migrated to urban cities, this humanizing connection with nature was severed. Racism and white supremacy came to be seen as all-powerful, the ultimate factors informing our fate. When this thinking was coupled with a breakdown in religiosity, a refusal to recognize the sacred in everyday life, it served the interests of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy.
He spoke in bold, unsparing terms about the soaring stories of America, the country's brutal reality, and the weight of those contradictions upon the mind of Black children. Baldwin says, American history is longer, larger, more various, more beautiful, and more terrible than anything anyone has ever said about it.
At certain times, I have no race. I am me. When I set my hat at a certain angle and saunter down 7th Avenue, Harlem City, feeling as snooty as the lions in front of the 42nd Street Library, for instance.
Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried.
I could see him wince with each click of the chains being tightened around his waist. I must have looked pretty distraught. Henry kept saying, "Don't worry, Brian, don't worry. Come back, okay?" As the officer pushed him toward the door, Henry turned back to look at me. I started mumbling, "I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry." "Don't worry about it, Brian," he said, cutting me off. "Just come back."
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run?
When life seems to bring nothing but a string of defeats and disappointments, we've got to have faith that something good is still in store for us. With this faith, we can forge ahead and continue to put forth our best effort.
For me, going high usually involves taking a pause before I react. It is a form of self-control, a line laid between our best and worst impulses.
Arabella, for as long as I had known her, was keenly adept at the enchantment of oration. Her sermons, biblical or not, inspired.
Somewhere, a little girl is reading aloud in the middle of a dirt road. She smiles at the sound of her own voice escaping the spine of a book. She feeds on her hunger to know herself. She has not yet been taught to dim. She sits with the stars beneath her feet, a constellation of things to come.
He is surrounded by fellow citizens caught under the spell of the Nazis. He keeps his arms folded to his chest, as the stiff palms of the others hover just inches from him. He alone is refusing to salute. He is the one man standing against the tide.
It is I who must take the step.
for a man to be both a Negro and an American.
What you can do to be a change agent.
In each moment determines what, not who, we are.
If we can dream of that world, we can also create it.
So that Earth can be our witness, our meaningful resistance.
This structure is operated for someone else's benefit, not theirs.
How can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me.
Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division.
Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
Or does it explode?
On the sidelines, we can only watch as others do the work and the winning.
It's what happens when you take a reaction and mature it into a response.
And oh, how the sinners would weep.
She's not the opinions of others. She is of visions and imagination.
What would it take to be him in any era? What would it take to be him now?
Thank you. Happy Black History Month. And welcome to today's Power of Diversity lecture, Black Girl Magic in Healthcare. And I do want to give a special welcome to the Shaker Heights High School District Minority Academic Scholars and Innovative Center for joining us today. Let's give them a round of applause for sharing this time with us. So the video that you just watched is part of a collaborative project with the Black Faculty and Staff Employee Resource Group, Media Vision, who has been just an amazing sponsor, co-sponsor for this, various student organizations, and the Office for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity. It's entitled Our Voices, Stories from Black Authors. You'll be able to view the full version of this video on our website and the CWRU YouTube page. And I think that next week it should be fully completed with all of the videos. So each person read a full excerpt from different authors. It's not strung together like that, but you'll be able to see it. But the other exciting part of it is that you will also be able to join us throughout Black History Month, where we'll be reflecting on writings from various Black authors through discussions with students, staff, and faculty with live readings that'll be taking place through the month. And if you'd like to join us for these reflections, for food and fellowship, please visit the Owidio webpage and campus groups where you can sign up and be a part of that group. So today we are, as part of our Power of Diversity lecture series, where we come together collectively to advance the goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're so happy today, our co-sponsor for today's lecture is the School of Medicine. And I know we have Tina Lining here, who's doing incredible work there. And Owidio sponsors this series throughout the course of the semester. And you will see information on your chairs about some of the other lectures that will be coming up in March and April. But the purpose of the lectures is to inspire campus dialogue, community engagement, and civic education and learning about the national narrative on diversity and inclusion. Today we have 4 dynamic panelists who will help us celebrate the contributions of Black women that they're making in the healthcare industry and field. Now, if you missed any of our past lectures or you'd like to know more about future events, we certainly encourage you to visit the Owidio website where you can learn more about it and about those that are coming forward. But before we move any further, I always like to take a little time to express our thanks and appreciation, certainly to Tiara Sargent, who is our diversity program manager, who's done an outstanding job in putting this together. and working in that regard, and the outstanding OIDEO team. We have Janae Johnson in the back and Michael Bustamante, who is in the back. We appreciate them. And then, yes, and Dr. Heather Burton and Karen Newton are unable to be with us today, but we appreciate them as well. This is, I believe we have a dream team. So now I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, who will be guiding our conversation this afternoon. So you're not going to hear from me anymore, but Dr. Angelique Redus-McCoy. She is an assistant professor of general pediatrics and the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for graduate medical education at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Spelman College and graduated from Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, where she now serves as an assistant dean of student affairs since 2021. Additionally, Dr. Redus-McCoy is committed to contributing to the future of healthcare through mentorship, with a specific interest in mentoring youth and medical students from backgrounds historically underrepresented in medicine. She has served as an advisor and work group leader for multiple mentoring and pipeline programs, including programs with the Student National Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics section on minority health, equity, and inclusion. Now, most recently, she started the CWRU School of Medicine Black Women Physicians Collaborative Affinity Group, bringing together Black women physicians, trainees, and students throughout our city for fellowship, professional development, and service. So I will note that as a reminder, at the conclusion of our presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, and so that will be available to you as well. But now I would like to invite Dr. Angelique Redus-McCoy and our panelists up to start this intriguing conversation. So please come join us. Give them a warmer welcome than that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. You all can hear me pretty well in the room? Awesome. Thanks to those who are live streaming as well. We appreciate everyone for joining us. I have to say that I am immensely, and I say that in all sincerity, just immensely thrilled to be able to moderate today and just bear witness to all of the magic of here on our panel. I think, as mentioned, like for me, one of the joys that I find is in building community amongst Black women in medicine. And we know medicine is not just physicians, it's nursing, it's community health workers, it's folks who are running the business side of medicine, because we know healthcare is broken, right? To be frank, it is a very flawed system. And a community that is most disproportionately impacted by the injustices and the flaws in the system is the Black community. So when we have people doing the work, such as our panelists today, who are here to change the system, disrupt the system, to be of service, to live in their mission in service in our community and seek justice, we have to celebrate that. And we know we're just a reflection of that, right? We are just a small piece. There are other people doing this work and doing that grind every day who may not be always represented up in panels such as this. And so we stand here not just to reflect our magic, because it is real, our magic is real, but to the magic of all of those who are unsung as well. So before we get started with our questions, though, I do just want to acknowledge, and I don't know if it was intentional, but it probably was, because our panel is fabulous and our organizers were fabulous, that today is actually the birthday. February 8th is the birthday of Dr. Rebecca Crumpler. Dr. Rebecca Crumpler was the first Black woman to earn and be granted a medical degree in the United States, and that was in 1864. And I'm going to just put a plug because I am trying to find and confirm the first Black woman graduate of Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. It is a journey. We are still working on identifying that person. So if anybody has any tips, please pass them along. But we do that in celebration of her. She served as a nurse in the community for many years and then ultimately earned her medical degree and just represents, again, all the trailblazers on the physician side, on the nursing side, on the community health side, and on the entrepreneurial side of medicine that do this work and have been doing this work for decades. So that was my little plug for Dr. Crumpler's birthday. We're going to go ahead, though, and get started because I want our panelists to introduce themselves so we can hear more about them. And as you're introducing yourselves, panelists, if you could just give us your why. Why are you in the space that you're in, and what is your personal mission? We'll start with Dr.
Are we going down the line?
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Naomi Drakeford. I use she, her pronouns. I am a licensed psychologist. I work here at Case Western Reserve in Health and Counseling Services. I'm the Director of Clinical Counseling Services, Equity, and Inclusion. It's a mouthful. There you go. I have been here for 4 years, and I've been working as a psychologist within college counseling for about 7 years. I love working with college students, so if you're a college student in the room, you're part of my why. But my particular interest is around the intersection of culture and mental health. That's what drew me to get my PhD in psychology, was really looking at how does culture maybe positively and how do isms negatively impact mental health, and how can I intervene on individual, group, and systemic levels. So that is my why. I'll also share just a special passion for Black women. So my research was on the strong Black woman stereotype and the implications of what happens when we internalize this idea that we have to be strong internally as well as portray strength externally. And I'm glad to be on this panel with these other amazing women.
Good afternoon. This one? Can you all hear me? Okay, so I can't hear myself. My name is Connie Hill Johnson, and I am the owner of Visiting Angels Senior Home Care. It is a non-medical or custodial home care agency where our job is to help seniors and the older adult live as independently as possible in their own familiar home environment. Most of us, I'm older than many of you in here, most of us have either cared for aging parents or will care for aging parents if we're not in the midst of doing that right now. And years ago, the thinking was automatically that if someone gets older, they automatically go to a facility. Well, that's not the case. I think the country as a whole is moving more towards aging in place. And so more and more services are coming into the home. And we're just a part of that service continuum. I am a graduate of this university, undergrad, not graduate school, but a very proud Case Western Reserve University undergrad, and I received a master's in health services administration from the University of Southern California. So I remind people I'm a Trojan, I am not a Bruin. I'm a Trojan, I am not a Bruin. I did not go to UCLA, I went to USC. I am also, and I sometimes don't share this, but I'm learning to walk into it because I think it's a little bit of Black history. I am now the first Black female to be the chairperson of the board of the Cleveland Foundation. The foundation is the oldest community foundation in the country. And I am proud, and I think it's a part of my why, is my heart has always been towards serving Cleveland. I have left twice, but I keep coming back. I'm a Glenville girl, but I am over the top excited about the fact that the foundation made a very strategic decision to move into the Midtown area and to come back and to serve the people and be more close to the folks that we're serving. So it does my heart well that as I serve seniors, I can also touch and serve the community that I grew up with, that I feel very comfortable in, and I'm excited about what's ahead for the work around philanthropy, particularly philanthropy for us as African Americans. We're learning that philanthropy just doesn't mean you write a check, but we traditionally have given up our time, our talent, our treasure, and it looks different in our community, and we need to be able to walk in that as we move forward.
Hi, I'm Dr. Erica Pritchett, and I am a case baby. So yes, I did my undergraduate degree here in biomedical engineering, and then went to work and said, okay, I want to go to medical school, and came back to medical school at Case Western, and then did my residency at Rainbow Babies and Children. So I see many familiar faces, you know, kind of amongst the crowd of people that have helped me along the journey. And certainly, as I've gone through, I did some NIH-founded research, and it was focused on healthcare disparities, what I saw working in the clinic, what I saw in my community, trying to understand why, you know, things are the way that they are, and why these disparities are perpetuated in our community. It was a strong focus of really wanting to understand and wanting to be the best that I could be, so that when I went out into the community, I was the best, most well-rounded physician that really I could be. So that if you saw me in an underserved area, which is where I've been working for the last decade, that you were going to get top-notch medical care, right? And you were going to feel like, right, you and I had that bond, and I was going to utilize my resources so that, right, you would get the best care that you could get possible. And so the goal has always been to help broaden that scope, whether it be with other collaborations, right? I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, so working on their physical and mental health group as well. And then outside of that, you know, my why is my family, right? And so I wanted to make sure that they had somebody that they could call on, right? That understood, knew how to navigate the system, and was there. And then that branched out into right, we're in the Black community, right? So now you're my cousin, right? And now you're my now you're my uncle. So then that became more of my process also. And so then that reached into, you know, of course, COVID, talking about vaccination, talking about care, talking about, you know, how to access care. So really that's been my passion, but I am the eldest, so it was very much a process to try to make sure that, right, I can do that, right, but rein it back as well. And so my why has been family, community, trying to continue to build that legacy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jasmine Long, and I'm the president and CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities. I'm also an adjunct professor at the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences. I am a graduate of the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences. I have both of the master's degrees, one in nonprofit management and one in social administration. And in my day job, what we do is we provide doula services to expectant moms. We are Northeast Ohio's only community-based doula collaborative, and we operate one of the largest doula agencies in the United States. We essentially provide full-scale wraparound services to expectant moms and their families in order to ensure that Black babies and moms are not dying in labor and delivery or in that first year of the baby's life. And we do have an incredibly successful program. Over the pandemic, infant maternal mortality rose by 33%. From 2020 to today, we've not lost a single mom in our program, and we only lost one baby, and that's one baby too many. That is a part of my why. I get up every day, excited, loving my job, loving what I do, because I get to ensure that Black families are whole. We have a mental health component to our program. It's called Our Wellness Network, which is a network of about 37 African-American grief recovery specialists, therapists, and lay people, and clergy as well, who provide grief recovery method training to members of our community. And that doesn't just mean our clients. We have a lot of violence happening in Cleveland now. We are now sending teams out when there are shootings and things such as that to provide community wraparound support so that we're not dealing with so much trauma, grief, in our neighborhoods. And I think that coming out of COVID, we recognize that there's so much grief and trauma in communities of color, and that we have to really address it in a unique way that is culturally sensitive. So it's my pleasure to get up every day and to work with the women, to advocate for dignity for Black women. That's probably my biggest fight, is that I'm advocating that we be treated with humility and dignity and respect in medical fields sometimes. And so, in our community, so I know we're probably going to get into some more questions that align with that, but that is my why. I'm never tired. I don't ever wake up like, why do I have to go to work today? I might want to sleep in a little bit more sometimes, but I'm always excited to go to work.
Thank you all so much. And I just love the word dignity, just resonates so much because, yeah, we talk about that a lot at work. Dr. McDavid over there can attest. Like just really assuring that piece. So thank you so much, everyone, for everything you're doing and for sharing your whys. Our next question, which I think goes back to maybe the beginning of our whys, is was there a moment or an individual that inspired you to pursue your career? I'll just briefly say for me, I grew up in Bedford Heights. I graduated from Bedford High School. I never had a Black woman teacher the entire time I was at Bedford. That's different now at Bedford, but I never had one. But I did have 2 Black women guidance counselors, and they were amazing, and they were very much the people who told me all the wonderful things I could do that perhaps I couldn't see for myself yet. And one of them specifically said, I want you to apply for this summer program at Case Western. They have this summer research program for kids interested in science. I know like you like biology. It's for minority students. I think you'll love it. And I said, okay. And then so I went ahead and applied. I got accepted. And that was that moment. I walked in. At the time, there was a Black woman physician scientist who was like fabulous. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what a scientist can look like and a physician can look like all in one. And she was amazing. And so that moment was really that suggestion, that nudge for me to apply for that program and then ultimately attending was really the moment that I could see myself in this space. And so even those moments when others may have dismissed me along that path, that moment, them believing in me enough to get to that point was instrumental. And I always tell her that every time I see Mrs. Dean and Mrs. Sims, wherever you are, you are amazing. All right, so let's start. We'll start on the other side. Jasmine, I know you just talked, but let's start with you first.
I'm inspired to do this work because of the Black women that have supported me throughout my entire life, starting with my grandmother. To see strength, dignity, and the upbringing that I experienced with my grandmother through our religious upbringing, it was really important to me. And I think it's what rooted me, and it's what kind of drives a lot of the compassion that I'm able to pour into people to this day. With respect to my educational career, I'm really lucky to always have had teachers who saw something in me and encouraged me to, as you said, try out for this program, apply for this, take advantage of this opportunity. You seem smart, you would love to do a program like this, and which has fostered me and created this opportunity. One, I'm a lifelong learner. I hate it, but I love it at the same time. I think, we always have the joke about like Black women. We're always talking about like, do I need to get that one more degree? I just do one more degree, it don't hurt. And so I'm always thinking in terms of that. So I'm just really grateful for a strong, rooted foundation that comes from my grandmother and my mother and my aunts. We all grew up very close. Literally living next door to each other, and so I think that was really helpful in making me be the person I am today.
I could say ditto to a lot of that. And my grandmother is certainly, my person as well. And I find it very personal because she is the person still today who has called me doctor more than anybody I've ever seen, right? And so at the moment that she said, okay, do you want to be a doctor or a lawyer? Because she was doing family planning. This is what we need in the family. Which one do you want to be, right? And why? We got to, correct. And so doctor it was. And from that moment on, she did everything that she could and called me doctor too. And so speaking life into your family, speaking life into your children, right, and mentoring is certainly a part of who I am and why, I got to the place that I am. I think that to extend on the question a little bit, a lot of times in our spaces, we are the only one, right? And so it's also how do we keep going, right? How do I wake up again, right, and decide that I want to be in this space, I want to keep pushing. And so for me, I have 2 different experiences there. And I think for me, one, I was really trying to understand and make sure, God, is this the place where you want me to be? Is this the place for me, right? Do you understand? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Are you sure, right? Send me a sign. And so I was just out of residency, very scary to be on your own and really have all the responsibility. And saw a patient late at the office, so that meant I was the only doctor there, right? And it started with, your eyes look a little bit yellow to me, And then that got to the patient, having a tumor removed. right, that did save her life. And I had never met her mother. But when I met her mother, she came to the office and just said, let me hug you. Just let me hug you, right? Because you saved my baby's life. Yes, I am in the right place, right? And if that doesn't do it, right? If that doesn't convince you that you are in the right place, right? Then you do need to go do something else. And I think that we always think about the saving of lives as a positive thing. But on the other side, of the coin, I also had an experience where I had a patient that was dying. And I'm a pediatrician, right? And a mother, right? And I had a patient that was dying. And they called me several days later from the ICU and said, hey, we apologize. We didn't tell you ahead of time. It was a new attending, la la la, right? But the mom is requesting that you come. And I said, okay. I'm very good with names, and I didn't remember her name. Turns out I had never seen this patient. But I had seen the mom before with another child, or as a part of her bringing a family. And she asked for me to come and be with her and help her walk through the process, because she didn't understand. I don't understand what these people are telling me and what this really means. I need you to come here, translate for me, and I trust you to tell me, if what they're telling me is true. And there is no more, fulfillment that I can give, from that, is to be in a place, where somebody can say yes, and it just started with a question, and you really, understanding that I need to dig deeper. I know I'm going to stay another 30 minutes. That's okay, This person's, life and livelihood is in my hands, And then to be, okay, but I also need comfort, and I need empathy, and I need someone who understands, and I trust you, having met you, a time or two. And so for me, that keeps me going, and I had the PICU nurse, who I didn't even really understand was listening to our conversation, wrote me a beautiful card after, and mailed it to me. And so those things like that, and I think that if you have a beautiful experience, that I want to encourage you to share, because I don't think the nurse knew, what that letter, would mean for me, and I literally keep it, and pull it out at times when life is challenging, and say, yes, this is me, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing, yes, this is where you are.
I think for me, when I think about the women that influenced me, and it sounds like a pat answer, but it's my mom. She's not with me anymore. She's in heaven. But I just remember growing up, there were 4 of us, and my mother did not go to college. She moved here at 18 from Alabama, came to live with her aunt, and knew that if she had children, that college was not going to be optional. So it wasn't about, are you going to college? It was, where are you going to college? And I got out of high school a year early. I accelerated. Can they still let people accelerate today? I don't even know. Can you? Somebody's nodding in the back. Yeah. So I was 16 when I set foot on this campus. And my choice was not here. And at 16, you just want to leave town. That's it. That's all I cared about. And my first choice was Northwestern. And I did not get accepted. I think I cried for a week. And so in my mind, I just wanted to get the heck out of town. But talking to my mom and really impressing, and my dad, impressing upon me the caliber of this university. I was like, but it's just 15 minutes from home. But a lot of women and men poured into me and made me see the value and the importance of coming here. And then my parents, who were middle class folks, insisted that I live on campus. And that was pivotal, I think, to maturing me and helping me form into the woman that I became. Because they said, you need that experience. You need to learn how to socially engage with others. And even at 16, they let their little girl move over here, and I was in Tyler House, room 320. I had a corner room. I'll never forget that. But I think about my mom now, because then I go off to California, and then I work in healthcare. I work at the old Kaiser Parma Hospital as an assistant administrator. And I'm older, folks, than I look. And so those days, driving to Parma from the Glenville neighborhood was serious for me, being the only African American too in administration there. But again, I kept hearing my mom. I'd come home and she'd say, "But you've got this. You deserve to be there. You can do this and more." So she really has been my inspiration and my encouragement and the voice that continues to tell me, even when I feel like I am coming unglued, you've got this. You deserve to be here. Keep going. So it's my mom.
Well, similarly to the other women who have shared thus far, shocker, Black women are the ones who inspired me. And I'll show both personally and professionally. So personally, I would credit my grandparents, but especially my grandmother, who was fortunate to be able to go to college, actually, in like 1940s, which was saying something. I come from a family of educators, so similarly to you, where are you going to school? What are you doing next? I'm like, but I already graduated. Well, what are you going to do next? And so it was get a master's degree. And then what are you going to do next? Well, I thought that was probably good. And my grandparents over and over said, keep your eyes on the prize. And so actually, my dissertation was dedicated to both of them with that, keep your eyes on the prize. And so they are my inspiration for all of the education and how long of a journey it was to get here. But in the academic realm, a woman named Dr. Dawn Williams. So I went to predominantly and historically white institution in Ohio, public university, often one of the only in my classes, in most spaces, and walking across campus. And I chose psychology as my undergrad major, and I trust that it has changed now, although I have not looked at their faculty website. There wasn't a single faculty member of color in the psychology department. And actually, only a few women. So those are my role models. I had never met a Black psychologist, let alone a Black woman psychologist. And so one of the opportunities that someone recommended, and I do what people recommend that I do as a good student that I was the McNair Scholars Program. Like, you should apply for this. I think you're someone who could go to graduate school and learning more about research. When you said research to 20-year-old Naomi, like, is that stats? I don't like math, right? I am a humanities philosophical thinker. Like math, SPSS, how does that work? Very intimidated, but I applied and I got in, and strong believer in pipeline programs. McNair Scholars honestly changed my life. I don't think that I would have applied for a master's program had I not done it. Teaching me what science is and like, oh, I can do science. Having to do an entire research project from, you come up with the idea, and of course I chose it on, okay, Black women, right? Of presenting at a conference, of running analyses. Oh, I could do this. And then I met other people who looked like me at that conference. And I had a Black woman mentor. It really challenged the imposter syndrome because I wasn't seeing myself in my faculty. I wasn't seeing what the possibilities could be. And so that was a huge factor in me getting here.
Thank you all so much. And again, just to reiterate, you see the common theme in that, right? Black women. And not that we can't have other mentors and not that we can't have other inspirations, but there is something, dare I say magical, but like there is really something that is familial, right? Like it's almost like cousin, auntie, like I got a whole bunch of cousins that are not my biological cousin, right? All the play cousins. Like there's this extended family that we find in our home base, in our neighborhood, but then we find in all these other spaces. And it's not just, it's wonderful to get us started, but it is so crucial to keeping us moving forward. And I think that we all can attest to that. Our next question for the panel is, what is your ideal healthcare system where Black women can thrive? And I'm sure we've got some wonderful answers here. I don't know if anyone wants to go first with that. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I knew it was going to come.
speak from the perspective of being a consumer. I'm not a physician. And some recent experiences I've had, and I've heard other black women say this, but I have learned, I'm an extrovert by nature, not at a loss for words at any given time, but was having some health challenges and really had to lean into advocating for myself. And I'm sure many of you have experienced going to a physician, and we know our bodies better than anyone else, and feeling like you were just poo-pooed, or call me in 3 weeks if you don't feel any different. And so I looked at my physician, who was a woman of color, but not an African American woman, so I will be honest about that. And I didn't get up when she got up out of her seat. You know how you're usually sitting there and there's a table and they're there, and 90% of the time they're on the computer. And I thought, no, I know how my body feels, and I know there's something going on here. So I'm not gonna go away for 3 weeks and you tell me to take this little pill and then call you back. There needs to be more. So I felt like I had to really, really push to get some exams and some blood work done, which ended up leading to something that's treatable. But when I think of the ideal system, I want the physician or the clinician to hear me the first time I say, there is something wrong with my body. And so I say that from a consumer standpoint. Now from a provider standpoint, and as a business owner, and this may not be a direct answer, but I have found that as a black female entrepreneur for 20 plus years, initially when I would go to a potential client's home, it was never thought that I was the owner. Ever. It was, as my husband would say, they thought you were working for the man, huh? And it was amazing. And so a couple of times I allowed them to think that. As a new entrepreneur, wanting the business, and knowing that if I admitted to being the owner, I had to balance this. Do I let them think I work for somebody else to get the business? Or do I just openly say, I own this, knowing that I would likely not get the business? And so I'd like to see a day that even as a black female entrepreneur in the healthcare arena, because I do provide allied healthcare services and home care services, that the confidence would be placed in me as an owner, as a black woman who has been in business over 20 years, that in and of itself should speak for itself, but occasionally it still rears its ugly head. Not to mention the conversation that comes up about we don't want a black caregiver taking care of grandma. We want someone else. And then having to have that conversation with families about you need someone to bathe your mom, assist her with her incontinence. You don't want to do it. And you don't want to do it. You're willing to pay somebody, but you don't want to pay a black owner or a black aide. Something's wrong with this picture here. And that's the reality still that I'm faced with sometimes. So in that perfect world, I don't want any of that to matter, and I want my aides to feel 100% sure of the fact that they are needed and welcomed in a home, whether it is down the way or whether it's in Pepper Pike, whether it's in Moreland Hills or whether it's 55th and Cedar, that their skill level and their talent and their heart to serve and their compassion is received in whatever environment they're in.
And I'll answer from the provider standpoint. I think that if we're just going to be honest, it needs to be healthcare in a society without white supremacy, right? So it has to be without institutionalized and structural racism. So that's the thing that makes me walk into the room with my white coat on saying, "Hi, I'm Dr. Pritchett," and the mom say, "You need to change the paper towels," right? No, I don't change paper towels here. That's not what I do, right? And so it's nothing wrong with changing paper towels, right? But you have to understand, right, the role of everyone, like in this group and in this society. So then there, if we take away those pieces, you know, like some people may have heard, right, in medicine before, there was research done, right, that was not actual research that showed that Black people don't feel pain the same, right? And so this is why still today, right, you get the conversation and say, "Are you really though? I don't know if you really feel it," you know, but another person may say that and you say, "Oh my gosh, what, right? 3, right, here's an opioid," right? And so, and that's the data behind why the opioid epidemic, right, impacted one community, right, more than it impacted us. So it saved us times 1, right? And so that was like one success, you know, we can kind of look and see, right, allegedly, right? And so then we talk about universal health care. We need to be in a place where health care is a right, right? We need to be in a society where you look at me, right, and you know that I need health care, and it doesn't matter if I make more money than you, right? Doesn't matter if I'm a child, doesn't matter if I'm, you know, an older person, right? Everybody, right, like should get health care. And to focus on population health, my wellness, right? Focus on my wellness, not just allow me to be seen when I'm sick. And if we focus on wellness, which is again why I like pediatrics, because most of the time, right, you will see families, right, communities, and everybody wants the child to be well, right? Whereas even some of us up here, right, may have not seen the doctor for the number of years, right, that, you know, that we should have. And so, but most of the time people, right, try to do that for their children. And then we try to inspire ourselves, you know, to kind of do that. So have I talked to, you know, grandmothers about their medical care when they're in the visit for a child? Yes, I have, right? And so I think that we need to be in a place where everyone has access, right? Everyone can afford, and in a space where you look at me and see me and not just the color of my skin.
And I bet, how many times have you probably diagnosed a mom with postpartum because she's there with the baby, right?
50% of the time.
You know, and so those things become important. That's why the cultural humility piece of it is so important. So one, we need to train more physicians of color, period. And so some of this starts even at the elementary school level, because once the kids are in high school, it's oftentimes too late to get them ready for medical school. And so really being intentional about having students who want to be on this track, teaching our kids that they can be doctors, having them see people like you so that they know that this is something that they can do as well. I think doulas need to be like for everyone, not just women who are pregnant, because how many times have any of us been at the doctor's office and we had a burning question that we wanted to ask the entire appointment, but you wait until your hand is on the door. As you're walking out, you ask the main, most important thing that you wanted to ask, and now your appointment is up. And so now you're feeling rushed. And so really being intentional about taking care of our health. I don't know if anyone has seen the Color of Change movie, but I would encourage folks to watch it and really look at how, you know, our healthcare has been set back because of COVID. And it was already set back before that. Yeah. So you already had people who had fears of hospitals, not wanting to go, like you said, not going for our annual yearly checkups, not doing the things that we need to do to actually take care of our health and wellness, so that we're not having to get to dire circumstances. And so we really need a complete community overhaul. We need everything that you said as well with respect to health insurance. I think that it's crazy we live in a country, but you know, I would digress and go down that rabbit hole. But I do think, but I do think that those things are really critical and needed. And I'll just give another example, because I spend a lot of times with women who are seeing doctors and having to sometimes make complaints when things go wrong. But if I said to you, you ask me what's my pain level, and I say, oh, it's a 5, and you're gonna ask me how long has it been feeling like this, and I say, it's been hurting for a minute. You're gonna receive that differently. It can be a long time or a short time. As opposed to, I know other physicians who get upset when clients make statements like that because they don't know what a minute means.
Yeah.
They don't understand that means, I said it's been hurting for a minute, then that probably means it's been hurting me for a while.
Yeah.
It's been hurting me for a while. So just really looking at like how those barriers are not causing patients to not receive the care that they really deserve to receive.
Can I add just real quick? Y'all have said it so well. Access, yes. Free, yes, please. Including mental health. I know we focus a lot on physical health. So I want to shout out the mental health aspect of that. And I think sometimes people will say, well, oh, you know, Black people don't go to counseling. Maybe they don't go because they haven't had good experiences there. Maybe they go because they've talked to someone who hasn't validated the racism or the gendered racism, or their symptoms have been missed, or they've been prescribed the wrong medication and had all these side effects. I think we go when we know we will be met with someone who is going to listen and understand our experiences. And so when I first thought, I was like, I want free, I want everybody to have it, every corner, free mental health clinics. But really, I think ideal would be listening to Black women. Really listening to them, believing them when they share their experiences, believing them when they share their pain, whether that's emotional or physical. I recently had my own health experiences this past fall, and my doctor said at the end of an appointment, well, let's hope for the best. And I thought, I've been in pain for over a month. I've now seen 3 doctors, and I'm leaving this appointment being told, hope for the best. And I said, well, what do I do if it gets worse? You just go to the hospital. Well, then I'll have a huge bill, and what will they do, was my immediate thought, right? Okay, you go to the emergency room, and even as someone with good health insurance, I don't want that bill if they won't then be able to help me. And I was sharing this experience with some colleagues, and someone said, well, I wonder if it's because you just talk so calmly, you're so calm, your voice is so soothing. I wonder if maybe if you presented in a different way, she would have heard you. And I thought, it shouldn't matter how I say it. You heard the words. And a Black woman being hysterical in a doctor's office isn't going to help me, right? So what if we just listened to Black women?
Amen times 4. I don't have anything else to add. You all said everything. And yes, I think there is so much that we see in our own personal experiences, in our families. One of the things that for me has been, as the physician in the family, and I have, a family who is, a lot of elderly folks, a lot of young folks, so across age spectrum. Even though I'm a pediatrician, I get all the grown-up questions, which I never know how to answer. But what I can do is say, these are the questions we need to ask. We're going to write this down. We just need that advocate. So whether it is kind of that doula that extends past, the prenatal and postpartum periods, but into how do we advocate for ourselves, and how do we as a community help each other advocate for our wellness. So yeah, we could keep on talking about that, but I'm going to go to the next question. And we can kind of approach this from a couple different angles, and so you all can answer how you choose, but we can think about how can the greater community support Black women who are healthcare professionals, and then perhaps how can Black women healthcare professionals kind of support each other across disciplines. So whoever would like to answer first. Anyone?
So I'll take a first stab at it, and first of all say, one, that we should be treating each other with grace. There is so much that goes into these fields of work. Somebody mentioned it earlier, we're like cousins and aunties. At my team, we're like literal sisters. We are literal sisters, and as such, we have disagreements. We don't always have the same viewpoints, but at the end of the day, we're always going to come to a resolution for the clients. And so because of the way in which we are Black women serving other Black women, the care that we're putting into them is the same I would give my sister. Because I want them to be treated the way I would be treated. And so as such, you're going out of your way. You're giving extra advice. You're asking extra questions. You're supporting members of the family, right? Not just your client. And not to forget, we have teen clients. And so that means sometimes we're providing extended support. We work with all the African American women who are incarcerated in Cuyahoga County Jail, and then supporting the families that take their babies home. it is very intense. And so one, we need to be protecting ourselves and thinking about our mental health. And when we say self-care, to know that it's okay to sometimes not be Black Girl Magic and just be Black Girl Okay. And not feel that we always have to carry that. And I hope that as our community continues to evolve, and I'm so proud when I hear my girlfriend like, oh, my therapy, I did this. Like a lot of us are taking care of our mental health and finding vessels to be able to vent and to share what's going on and to allow us those safe space. I'm excited as well to learn about this Women's Collaborative for Healthcare Providers because y'all need that wraparound support. There are things that I'm going to experience that I could never share with someone else who's not a CEO doing this kind of work. Like there are just some things that I'm dealing with that nobody else could really understand and support me in. And my friends, they want to be there for you, of course, but you need somebody who's going to be, girl, I did this. Like really to have those moments of connection and to have those safe places and allies we can go to when things are going wrong in our places of business or to our clients, and to have someone who will actually leverage their voice. Because I don't want to have to always be, you know, in class today I was teaching about having difficult conversations, and one of my students said, you know, how do you know when to fight the fight? And so sometimes you've got to trust your gut, but how important is it to have those allies who will speak up for you and say what you're going through and allow you to not have to be the person, not always to be that Black woman saying this is wrong, this is racist, this is not right. Like I said, really leverage others around you. So it's multifaceted, it's an approach that we need. I really encourage women to take their time, take some vacations. I take my vacations, I go shopping, I buy my perfumes. I do little things, you gotta find the little things that make you happy and bring joy to your life because this work is so, it can be so taxing. It just can be so taxing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I'll add that we would love it if everyone would vote. And we would love it if you would vote for in alignment with your interests, right? So that we don't have to fight here for your interests, right? As much, but we will continue to do so. I think I would encourage also for us to vote in terms of looking at, yes, your personal interests, but also the interests of the greater good, right? And so for other people around you. And I'm gonna leave that one there, right? And then, the same thing, right? Fellowship, mentoring, I completely agree, right? I have 0.25 left on my PTO. Perfect, we're gonna use it, right? And so, and to make sure that I'm able to, spend time with my family, I think, go to my son's basketball games and be cheering for him. These are things that, yes, help replenish the cup and help, fill it back up. And socializing, talking, and making sure that, we see the joy, we see the good outcomes, right? We hear about the work that's being done, and so that we have kind of some type of toolkit that we can go to, right, and use when I see people who are like distressed, when I see people, right, who are looking for resources, right, I have a toolkit, right, that I'm gonna call, right, if I know that you're a teen and you're pregnant, this is something that I have for you, right, my elderly family member, right, I'm thinking about, right, some care for them and where do I need, right? I need some counseling resources for the community, right? I need a pediatrician. And so these are the things that we can do to help each other.
Oh, I have mine. Have my own mic.
You got
to. And I'll just briefly say one of the things that has really come to be real to me now is I think we have crossed over regarding therapy. I am amazed at the amount of Black women who just in conversation will say to me, and girl, when I was at my therapist yesterday, it's like saying when you're at the beauty salon. And I'm like, you in therapy? And so I do think we've kind of crossed that and gone are those days, we hope, where, girl, keep your business to yourself. Don't tell anybody. You better just lay on the altar and pray about that thing because, no. I said to someone the other day where I go to church, the pastor's wife had on a T-shirt that said, I love Jesus and my therapist. I thought you have set a lot of women free in here today to be boldly able to wear that because particularly in the Black church, you don't go to therapy and you dare not pay somebody to tell your problem. So I do think we're getting there. I have 30-year-old niece who is big on it. She's like, Aunt Connie, you need to go talk to somebody, because I'm talking to somebody. So I am thankful for that. I am thankful for that. I think the other thing is to take the time, because we as Black women, I say to my husband all the time, I am not Superwoman. I cannot fry up the bacon and bring it home in a pan and help you remember that you a man, or whatever that commercial was. I can't do it all. I cannot do it all. I can't. I wish I can't. And so I'm learning to stop and ask my sisters and my friends, how are you? And then stop. No, how are you? And so, and be open enough and vulnerable enough to tell people, when people ask me that, it sucks today. And to be okay with crying, or to be okay with, I'm having that real imposter syndrome. You know I had that imposter syndrome when I got selected to be the chair of the Cleveland Foundation. I'm like, what have I agreed to? They are gonna find out that I have been faking it for the past, but again, my sister friends surrounded me and said, you got this. Why shouldn't it be you? You know, to build me up. And I think as Black women, there is a way that and I've said this to groups of women, whether it's all Black or mixed. And I had to be vulnerable in saying this, even to my white sisters, that there's a way that I'm gonna relate to these two in a room, these four, that I won't relate. And they said to me, but Connie, we think we know the real you. And I said, you do know the real me. But on the other side of that door, if I'm with these four, they're gonna be, it's gonna be a little bit more of a safe space where I can share some things. And so I say to women, period, but Black women in particular, find, as people say, your tribe, your circle, your sister girlfriends, and let it out when it needs to be let out. We're not super women, okay?
I don't know what I could add to this. I would only echo the need for support. And I think sometimes we're having more programs when you're in your healthcare training programs, but you need it all the way through. And honestly, you need more support the higher that you go, right? So just last week, I attended my first Black director support group, right? And it happened to be, it just started. They were like, I sign up for every month. I'm going to every one. And I went to the first meeting, and it happened to be all Black women. And I said, oh, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is beautiful, right? Because I think sometimes we think that feeling of being the only, or having our competence questioned, or I have been in therapy sessions, and they don't teach you how to handle it when I am sitting across from a client who is using the N-word repeatedly. They don't teach you how to manage that, or how you might feel after session, or what you need. I think we've had a lot of time focusing on how to provide good care to our clients and patients, but what do you do when it's your client or patient who is microaggressing you, right? And so we just need support in the recognition of what Erica was saying. White supremacy is a part of our society. It's part of healthcare. And so please make sure that you're checking in on your Black women healthcare providers. We are helpers by nature. That's why we are in the fields we're in. And then we have even more on our plate because we are navigating gendered racism all the time. And it is exhausting. And so we need more support. We need check-ins. We need space to be human, to not be the strong Black woman all the time. And to not always be responsible for the DEI work, right? Help us out with you hear a colleague who's making a statement that if it makes you cringe, imagine how it made me feel, right? And so using your voice to speak up when you can.
That was awesome, all of that. And I'll just add to that, similarly, that sense of isolation that sometimes you get when you are in spaces where you are the only or one of only is part of the reason why I told Tina Lightning, I said, Tina, I'm going to just start this Black women group for doctors and the students and the residents. I was like, I know we sometimes get on those silos with our hospital systems, but we're at Case, right? So we can do this for all the hospitals. And I just want us to see each other. I want us to hear about each other's experience and lean on each other. And I can say every time we have connected, if it's on Zoom, we got our little tea and we chat and we do our business part and we chat some more. And then everybody's always like, my cup just got so filled tonight, just over Zoom, just to be able to hear and share those experiences and to celebrate ourselves and to make sure that once I hear that, one of our physicians is the second, Dr. Jean-Marie is the second Black female vascular surgeon in the country here in Cleveland, right? And I never knew that. Like, that's a shame, right? There's no reason I should have not known that. And so to be able to hear that and then share that and then keep on sharing that and say, listen, we have these rock stars, these amazing women. And just to lift each other up, speaking each other's name is powerful. It's powerful just to be affirmed, but it's also powerful when you think about the opportunities that people may be just not getting or not, missing out on because people aren't hearing them and other people aren't speaking their name. And so I think there's just so much power in that. I'll also just add to, as we were talking about that experience as healthcare providers. I had a procedure 2 years ago, a year and a half ago now. And I was having the hardest time getting this thing scheduled. Like, painful. I'm like, and I finally had to throw in my little doctor card. I'm like, but I'm a physician, I can't get this appointment scheduled. I need to have this procedure, et cetera, et cetera. And then what just made me remember my why was that the person that I finally got to after multiple callbacks and multiple transfers was someone, and she was like, you Dr. Redus? I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I got you. And so as it turned out, I was like her grandbaby's doctor. And she said, when you do good by people, people do good by you. And so I was like, thank you for saving me. But like, that's the thing. We shouldn't have to keep being saved. But like the reality is when people are looking out for you, when you do good by people, they bring that back. And I literally teared up because I was ready to get this thing taken care of. But it was just that magic in that moment of being able to hear that I did okay, right? I did well by her family. But then for her to be able to say, nope, I'm gonna make sure you're taken care of. And all those other people I had talked to, they want to take care of me. So it still happens. We still deal with that, even as the people who are supposed to be, the ones who are, seemingly at this higher part of the hierarchy, still struggle with some of the things that our community and our patients struggle with as well. So, as we get wrapped up, I think with our final question for the panel. Yep. Okay. So it's a celebratory question. So what type of magic happens when Black women are in healthcare? So we'll start one more time. Get you down the line.
I have a quick answer for this. We save lives. Mm-hmm. Literally, we save lives. I don't know if folks are familiar with the increasing rates of suicide within the Black community. They are scary when you see the percentages, particularly of our Black youth, 15 to 24. I think when you are met with someone who looks like you, who is going to listen, who's going to validate your pain, we save lives. And Black people, Black women don't have to suffer in silence. That's what can happen. It's actually the magic of healing.
And I'll say, even from being a provider in my arena, I think it's the same thing. It may not be saving a physical life, but the caregiver families that come to me, and it's Black and white, but specifically we as a community, as African Americans, we will wait until we are about to break before we ask for help from a stranger to come in and take care of our mom or dad. So we have gotten Sister Lucy at the church and little man across the street and Ray, our cousin, and he's doing 2 hours and she's doing a half an hour. We will piece it together for an extended period of time before we say, Uncle, I need help. And so when I'm serving families that look like me, I recognize that I am not just serving a 85-year-old grandma or mother, but it is that adult daughter or son that is literally about to collapse because they have pushed themselves so to the edge, feeling like, but I've got to do this. This is my mom, and I don't ask for help outside. And so in that same sense, we're saving lives, we're saving families, we're allowing adult children to spend that quality time with their aging parent versus I've got to come over here, I've got to mop the floor, I've got to go to the grocery store, I've got to fill your pill box, I've got to write checks to pay your bills, and they don't have that time to really spend with mom or dad because there are tasks to do to make sure mom or dad are okay. So I never thought of it that way, but we're saving lives too, in a different sense.
I completely agree. I think in the setting of, we talked about cultural competency, we improve care, we improve outcomes, we reduce disparities, and so that means we save lives.
I think we all have the same answer. We can transform communities. So how many women get to convince their boyfriends, husbands to go get that checkup, right? And so when you have providers who care and are willing to take the time and ask the questions, it really lessens the load, and it really helps people feel more comfortable to come back. And we want people coming back to their doctor's appointment. You don't know how many times, and I've been this way, like, okay, the doctor pissed me off, so now I'm not gonna go back. That doesn't hurt anybody but myself, right? But you get so frustrated that you don't want to. And so really being able to have care that is culturally competent, with cultural humility if needed, to ensure that clients are coming back, and we know that we can change lives, transform families, and save lives.
Awesome. So I think we are opening up for questions. Awesome. So I can take this mic on over. Okay. All right. So if anyone has a question for anyone on the panel, please feel free to come on up and use the mic.
I'm supposed to use this, right? I'm a midget. So I'm Lolly McDavid, and my children went to Shaker. What I want to tell the students is stay in touch with each other. When you come home for Christmas and Thanksgiving and summers, reach out to each other because you all are each other's supports, okay? And you're each other's champions, and you're going to be happy for each other. And so don't lose touch with the people who are here with you now because you all are all going on the same path, and you're going to be very glad to get there, all right? I have a friend from way back, and I've gone twice when he's been installed as a university president, and he makes all the black folks show up to places like Norton, Massachusetts, where they're not used to seeing us. So, but stay in touch with each other and be each other's champions, because there are going to be people who are going to go, well, why do you want to do that? And so you need in your head the people that are going to the same place that you're going.
Can I say something too before somebody asks? And this is somewhat of an aside, but I've just got to shout out this young lady here, and I want to say to the young women and men here, if there is someone that you see in the community that you want to get to know, or you're working on something and you think that person can help you, reach out. This is my little sister, excuse me for reaching out. But I remember 15, I don't even know, when was it? 9 years ago, I think I get a LinkedIn connection where Jasmine was a student here. I think she may have found out I went here, but I was doing some work at the Cleveland Foundation in Black philanthropy, and she was writing a paper or doing a research project on Black philanthropy. And that's literally how we connected. And she couldn't get rid of me now if she wanted to, but I have watched her move and shake in the city of Cleveland. And to see where she is now as the CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities, I am blown away. So she knows I have her back. She knows she can call on me, but I encourage you that if there is somebody you want to make a connection to because you believe you can learn something from them, or you want to get exposed to an area that you haven't been exposed to, then do it. We are out here to support young adults with whatever it is that they stand in need of if we can.
You are so funny, and I appreciate that. But she really did. And I always, when I speak to students, I always say, take advantage of the fact that you are a student, and ask if you see a conference or something. Ask for a free ticket. If there's an event you want to go to, say, hey, I'm a student at Case and I can't afford to go. Even if you can, like start to network, mix and mingle with people. Go to networking events. Things are starting to pick back up, and really interface. Because I'm not from Cleveland. I'm from Connecticut, and I moved here only to go to Case, and it was because of meeting people like Connie that I've decided to stay here, build a career, and to do the work that I do that is really meaningful to me. And on another note, I'm like, just look at this. Like, we have never met each other, and we just vibing and bonding, and there's just something so special about when we come together and we really care about our community, the conversations that we can have, and the power.
That's right. Oh, let me take my, okay. I'll come.
You had asked the question like about black women who graduated from medical school, so I called my sister, and she's a graduate of Shaker, and she was one of the black women who, first of all, she was the first black woman to graduate with her degree in biochemistry from Ohio State University. So I'm like, well, were you the first to graduate from Case? So she was one of 8 black women back in 1985. So that might be a beginning for you to look. She said there was a lot of men. A lot of men were in there. So I'm not sure. She said she's sure that there was some before her, but there was only 8 of them in medical school. So when she graduated, okay. Well, she was just saying she's one of 8. So she didn't say she was the first. Right. I just wanted to give you an idea of that. What else did she tell me? Oh, I remember a time when she was in medical school here, and she was doing rounds, and she wore her hair natural. And she was, they didn't like that. It wasn't until she had to go out and buy a wig in order to get recognized in the hospital by the person she was doing the rounds with the other students. So it's a challenge as well. But I also have a sister who's been a psychologist now for probably 55 years. So yeah, she's still doing it. She's like 80-something years old now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will say the hair thing is real. Dr. McDavid can attest to the fact that my hair changes frequently. Part of the reason that I have the blonde hair, and sometimes I have the braids, and sometimes I have the locks, and sometimes I have other things, is to have students come through and say, I can still do that, right? Like, I can still do that and have this job. I can still have multiple piercings in my ear and have that job. So I do that partly on purpose, partly because it's just me, and I don't feel like I don't have enough energy to keep changing myself to fit a certain norm. But at the same time, part of it is to ensure that you all can see that this is what a doctor can look like also. And I love when I go in a patient room and I'm like, hey, it's Dr. Redus, and they're like, you the doctor? I'm like, I sure am. We about to have fun today. It's gonna be fun. So all of that to say, just know that whatever you look like, however you talk, like all of those things, just being yourself can still happen in this space. It's not always gonna be easy, but I have seen, and I've had conversations with medical students even now who still ask me, like, if I go on an interview, should I wear a wig or should I put in a weave or whatever, like just to kind of fit what they think they're supposed to look like. And I can attest to the fact that many of them don't feel the need to do that, and it can still be amazing and show up and be their true selves in those spaces. But it does help when you have women like this in those spaces too, and they're not the only one trying to come in and trailblaze, because that's a lot harder. So I just wanted to add that part. Oh.
I think while we're just going back there, I think that it was also important for me to make sure in any job that I had that they put a picture of me on the ad. Just so, right, everyone could understand, right, before I walked into the room what I looked like, right? And so you don't have the exodus, right, based off of, what you look like, or, if you have blonde locks today.
Hi. Can one of you guys briefly discuss or give advice for when we are in the healthcare industry, when things are being said that's inappropriate or racially said, especially by a superior person that's like our boss, director, or so forth, like how we can handle things like that, whether it's our hair or just remarks that are just inappropriate in general because the only black girl is standing there and nobody's going to say anything. Can somebody give advice on that?
It's okay.
Go
ahead. All right.
That has happened. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. I'm just a believer in you've got two choices. You can address it right then and say, excuse me, but I was offended by that remark. We don't have to go all, what are you talking about? No, I was offended by that remark. Or you could wait and check the person afterwards. But I think what has happened over the years is too many of us have not addressed it when it has occurred. And so I think it's quite all right. Pick your words, whether you want to say that was a microaggression or just whether you want to say, I was personally offended when you made that statement or when you said. Because sometimes I really do believe they don't know. It's been so much a part of the lexicon and how they've spoken in group settings before and no one has ever checked them. And so I think it's incumbent upon you, if you were indeed offended. Now, if you weren't offended, there's nothing for you to say. But if you were, that's how I have handled things.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think and I also am a believer that I'm a very introverted person, but at the same time, if we're talking about, like something of disrespect, I think that you need to address it, like head on at the time. I did have, Bye to the students.
Bye, students. Thank you all so much for coming.
Right. Contact us. We're here.
All right. Thank you all again so much for coming and safe travels. But thank you all to everyone, those who tuned on the live stream and those of you who graced us with your presence today, for joining us, for your energy, for your questions, and just for your attention. And just to continue to support one another, continue to support those young people who are coming through. I'll say one of my I had a student who was at Ohio State, wanted to shadow me when I used to work in East Cleveland, and she now works alongside me in my clinic. And so, you just never know what can happen, making those connections. Oh, sir, you have a question. One last. Oh, we got two quick questions. Okay. Do we? Okay. Yes, we do. Okay, I'll let him go. We can continue to chat, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
Hello. So I'm Bryson. It's great to meet all y'all and be here. I'm very inspired by all y'all's stories, in particular y'all's why. I've been studying neuroscience for about 8 years. Been doing research. I'm working at the clinic up down the street, and I've been noticing the demographic in which we've been enrolling. So we're kind of doing a longitudinal study of all neurological diseases. It's an observational study. And at first I was doing work with EEGs, but now I'm transitioning into screening participants because I want the demographic of our study to reflect the demographic that's high risk, and particularly minorities too. I feel like we've had about 500 participants come in, and I've treated or dealt with about 3 minorities. So that's why I wanted to go towards the screening. But as you all mentioned previously, there is a lot of discrepancies in minorities feeling willing and open to reach out and be a part of studies on the other end. So what are some solutions to make sure we have accurate representation for these, specifically for these studies, to actually learn more to develop treatments for minorities that can be more effective?
I did a research project, same thing, NIH funded in 2000, okay? On the exact thing that you're talking about, but I was looking at asthma, right? How can your research be generalizable, right, if it predominantly affects me and you have 3 people in the study, right? And so, and to look at particularly, right, to do focus groups and right? I had an epidemiologist, nationally recognized locally, right, come add on to the project and was still rejected by the IRB over and over and over again. I won award for the research still, just based on the idea, right, and going forward and how we were going to answer the question. But you see, this is the institutionalized racism that we're talking about, right? That if she can do a national study, right, like based on Polish people, right, using this research and get accepted, how come I can't do the same thing, right, but talking about Black people at the same organization, right, in the same place and time? So honestly, I wish I had answers for you, right? But this is a massive problem, a whole community issue. It gets to the basis of everything that we're trying to do here, right? If I don't trust the system and I can't trust you to treat me, I surely cannot trust you to study me, right? And so that's the process, and then trying to get more people sitting at the table, right, that you do trust, so that you will be more willing. But we are ways.
I want to jump in and say something, though. Sometimes I've recognized, you're right, we won't come in. But my philosophy is if Muhammad won't come to which one is it? The Imam won't come to Muhammad? You may have to go out into the community. And I don't know who in here knows Waverly. What's Waverly's last name? The barbershop, his barbershop. He was committed about hypertension, particularly in the Black community and Black men. He partnered with, I don't know if it was the American Heart Association, but a nurse. And they are going into the barbershops. Going into the barbershops, doing blood pressure checks, and sending men directly to the emergency room. So sometimes I think we've got to go get them. Take the service to them if that's possible, versus, because we know the trepidation in our community. We know the distrust. We know we think, we immediately go to Tuskegee or they're gonna do something to us. And so sometimes, and it's gonna take voices and faces that look like yours to say, hey man, this really is okay. And let me explain why we need you as a part of this study. But I think sometimes we just have to go into the community and not expect them to come into the sterile environment of a facility.
There's an ophthalmologic surgeon at University Hospitals named Dr. Edward Burney. And he did his research in Baltimore on glaucoma, when he went into barbershops.
Yep.
One point, Ed said to me, Ed was one of only 12 Black full professors of ophthalmology in the country. And he did primary things. I published a paper on how do you get Black people involved. You've got to ask them. You have to go to where they are, and you have to go to people who they trust and ask them. And you have to make those kinds of, I'm in 4 different studies. I'm in one with people with a family history of Alzheimer's. I've been in Dr. Jackson Wright's studies. I've been in one, a woman who was in my medical school class who is at the Mass General, Joanne Manson. I've been in like 5 of her studies. When she asks, I say yes. So, but you have to ask people, and you have to go with people who they trust. But there is a way to do it. And Dr. Burney, he's still teaching and he's still seeing patients. B-U-R-N-E-Y, tell him I sent you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Trey. We've got to wrap up to allow people to...
I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. My name is Trey Armstrong. I'm a master's student here. I'm also a case baby. And right now I'm considering where I want to pursue my medical education. And one of the things that I constantly struggle with is, as African-American males, do I advance the culture more by infiltrating the white spaces, or do I create spaces for my own or for my own people? What do you all think will help advance our culture more?
I did a summer program at FAMU, and I had the time of my life, and said to myself, I can't go here, right? Like to school. So understanding that, yes, you have to balance your social with your academic, but for me, that was my personal story, that I would not have been academically successful at an HBCU. I would have been, having like
my first thought is, go where you will thrive.
Because that journey is long. And so while it is great to be a trailblazer, where will you be supported? Where can you find community? Where do you have mentors? Because you won't be any good to the Black community if you go somewhere where you don't get fed and where you don't make it through the journey. You'll make an impact wherever you go.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And I did go to an HBCU for undergrad. And I graduated in 4 years. I had a fabulous time in Atlanta, but I do think there is a combination of that. I think we need to come from all angles because the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house, right? And so there is the need to be disruptive and to create our own space. Disruptive in the sense that that's how we are looked at, but we are doing the work to rebuild, right? To find ways to rebuild our spaces and to create safe spaces for our community. So there is absolutely space and a huge need for that. But then there's also space because if students go to Case and there is no Black professor there are no assistant deans of student affairs that they feel like they can talk to because they don't feel like they can relate, then that is an empty space too. So we need to kind of come from all angles. So I did the same thing everyone else said, go where you will be happy, go where you will thrive. But you won't make a wrong decision. You'll be good wherever you go. Okay, I think we're being told to wrap up.